Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Pisgah Podcast.
Again, we are your hosts, Drew and Mangler, and we're coming to you live from the amphitheater at Stair Creek.
Too bad there isn't like a caveman TV here to watch from the caveman couch that's under there.
I know, it's a bummer, right?
So, Drew, this past week I got a lot of snow. It looks like all the snow melted at your house.
Yeah, it's gone.
Did you get a chance to even play in it, or is it just like snowed, melted by noon?
It melted by noon, and I expected that. And I'm just not a snow fan anyhow, so I didn't care.
Yeah, by the time your snow melted, I was like a quarter of the way done shoveling my driveway.
That's a big driveway, too. Mine's less than a car's length, and I'm out of the driveway, so it's just not that big of a problem for me.
With all this snow, it definitely wreaks havoc on potential mountain bike plans in our area. What are some of your favorite go-to spots that are a drive away but aren't that far away?
Well, I have two that I kind of go to automatically, and it really just depends on the weather pattern. But, it's super easy to get to Knoxville, Tennessee from here. It's hit or miss whether they get the same weather as us, because the stuff that sticks around here usually comes up from the south. But it's close by. The weather's usually 10 to 15 degrees warmer there, and I think that with the urban wilderness trails and things like that they have there, I think the maintenance is a little bit higher, so things are ready to go a little bit quicker. But the other place that's kind of quick to go to is just going down to Paris Mountain in South Carolina. It's pretty close by.
Yeah, Paris Mountain is a really rad spot, but just note, mountain bikes are not allowed on Saturdays.
Yeah, I've had to turn around.
There's some other zones down there that are pretty fun, like sometimes just doing the Swamp Rabbit Greenway Trail from like Travelers Rest into Greenville is not bad.
No, it's not bad at all, and it's also a really good recreational ride if you're just trying to get out and get moving, and it's kind of fun to ride into Greenville from Travelers Rest, go to the zoo, and there's a lot of places that are easy to hit along the way.
I totally agree with you on the urban wilderness. Not to mention they do have that really sick asphalt jump line and plus size pump track, I would call it. So weather isn't really a factor with that stuff as long as it's not covered in snow.
Yeah, for sure. I like it a lot.
If we're going to reach out a little bit further, some of the North Georgia stuff is really good. From what I've heard, unfortunately, Georgia's not been a state I've ridden my bike in very often. It's usually like a fly-through state, because usually I'm making my way to either Florida or Alabama to go ride Coldwater or Oak Mountain State Park.
Yeah, those are good spots as well, and they're kind of southeast classics. One thing that I will say about Georgia is the stuff that's in the tri-states area is super accessible. It's really easy to get to, but not if you're just on I-85 and you're heading south.
What about Florida? Do you have any go-to Florida spots?
Well, there's obviously Santos. That's the classic one, right? But, I've been hearing really good things about Alafaya. I haven't got to check that one out yet, but it's definitely going to be on the list, and I think maybe even here towards the end of January.
Yeah, Alafaya, I can confirm, is really fun. It's got a good directional pattern to all of the, I'm going to call them advanced trails there, with some really cool little offshoots, some like alt lines. There is a trail there called like Buzzard's Roost, I believe. As tempting as it may look, I would avoid that trail. Basically, it's called Buzzard's Roost for a reason, because hundreds of buzzards roost in that zone, and shit just rains down from them, and it has like this ammonia smell that just like melts your nose hair. So avoid Buzzard's Roost Trail at Alafaya.
That sounds terrible. I'll definitely avoid that one.
Another spot to mention really close to Alafaya is Bomboyette, and I believe it's referred to as a nature preserve. And nature preserve it is. Tons of crazy animals there. I mean, you're going to see alligators, you're going to see deer, you're going to see giant turtles, lots of different birds, probably some buzzards, armadillos, like just lots of cool nature at Bomboyette. And at Alafaya, the 2 times that Jessica and I have been there, we always see this fairly sized tortoise in like the same zone. So it's cool to see that guy hanging
Hmm.
out.
That's neat. So, Bomboyette, what town or what city is that nearest by?
So Alafaya and Bomboyette are like southeast of Tampa, about like 45 minutes to an hour, depending on where you're at in Tampa. So I consider that like a Tampa zone trail network.
Okay.
And then like Santos is about an hour and a half north of Tampa. But yeah, Bomboyette is a little more chill than Alafaya, has more nature, but then Alafaya is really cool trails, lots of techie up and down stuff. Originally, Alafaya was a mine, like an above ground mine, and
Mm-hmm.
water filled in where they dug into a lot of places. And so there's like these giant hills, and they've basically carved out trails around all these giant mounds. Really awesome trails there, some really fun jumpy stuff. Very creative and good use of the landscape.
Yeah, that sounds great. That's something I need to check out, and I'm coming up due for getting out of town and riding something here pretty soon, and I'm thinking I'm eyeing up the end of the month.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason we get so much Florida traffic up here in the summer is because it's not that far. You know, you can be in Florida in easily a day's drive. You know, we have all the Floridians come up here in the summer. Why don't we go visit their state in the wintertime?
10-4, yeah, absolutely agree with that.
Our featured guest this week, Juan Pablo Raba, he spent some time living in the Miami area and he speaks highly of Virginia Key. And there's some other really good trail spots down in the Miami area. So, you know, Florida's a treasure trove of mountain bike trails and they will whip you into shape, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of strange because we always think of Florida as a pretty flat place, and maybe even a place with bad weather, and it's just not the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of mountain biking. However, I've done a lot of endurance races in Western North Carolina over the past 15 years, and almost every year, people from Florida, from the Tampa and the Miami area, St. Pete area, show up and put on a show. There's some good fit people with a very big passion for riding down there, and you can't discount the fact that they add a lot to the tourism in this area. If you pull into the hub on any given Saturday, maybe not during COVID times, but you'll see a lot of Florida tags in the parking lot there.
Yeah, I mean, Florida shows up in Western North Carolina, that's for sure.
Well, speaking of Juan Pablo and coming from spending a lot of time in the Miami area, has he spent much time here in Pisgah? Done much riding here?
So, a couple of years ago, me and Daniel Sapp took two Colombians on a pretty awesome Pisgah ride. They were blown away by it, and of course, they probably went home and told their friends. Well, about a year or so later, Daniel gets a text from our friend down in Colombia, and he's like, "Hey, a buddy of mine's coming to town. Can you show him a good time?" And of course, yeah, that's what we do. So basically, through showing some random dudes through the woods, we got linked up with Juan Pablo, and kind of the rest is history.
My name is Juan Pablo Raba, and I was born in Bogota, Colombia 43 years ago, but next week is going to be 44. I've lived all over the place. My dad was from Argentina, so I've lived in Argentina. I was raised in Spain, actually. I lived in Colombia, Venezuela. I've lived in Miami, North Carolina, Los Angeles, and Vancouver, British Columbia. And the
Yes.
way I ran into mountain biking was because I was looking for something to do other than CrossFit. I was getting really hurt doing CrossFit. I liked the intensity of it. I liked, the group feeling of CrossFit. It was kind of cool. But I started doing CrossFit when it just arrived to Colombia. So basically in the inception days. And back in those days, there was no really like formal training, right? So you had this new strange sport that combined a lot of athletic abilities, but especially it involved a lot of very technical heavyweight lifting, right? And the truth is, we got there and we smashed the workouts for a time, and everybody was getting hurt, man.
Oh yeah, tearing muscles and stuff.
It was terrible, dude. My lower back was suffering. And the third time I got hurt, my best friend Richie, who my
Yep.
best friend who's an architect, he told me like, dude, just stop going to this place, where all a bunch of gringos are just screaming at you permanently, and just and just come and do some outdoor sports. Come bike with me. I'm like, bike? What are you talking about? What do you mean bike? He was like, yeah, we have a couple mountain bikes and we bike. I'm like, okay, well that was not appealing at all. I was hurt and I was like, I'll try something. I couldn't just stay home doing nothing, so I started going out with him. He lent me a bike. So I kind of liked it, and funny enough, the first thing I really fell in love was the climb.
Oh, interesting.
I liked the idea of climbing. It became a challenge. And after doing it 3, 4 times, then my wife told me one day, she was like, I don't know if you've noticed, but every time you go biking and you come back, you're like chill. It's like there's this Zen version of you after you come biking. And I started kind of analyzing this and I realized that, yeah, it made sense, right? It was not only the exercise, it was not only the fresh air, it was also, but what then I discovered and I called the bike therapy, which was
Yep.
just, you would just hang out with your buddies, talking about your wives, talking about your problems, talking about, so it became a therapy, right? So that finally took me into getting my first bike. And of course, the biking for us was just a bunch of gravel roads where we climbed as fast as we could and we went down through the same fire road trying to not kill ourselves. We're
Yeah.
trying we're talking about very, very low quality bikes
On steep, sketchy gravel.
on steep, sketchy gravel. So it was a thing. But that's how it started.
You grew up in Spain and then you end up back in Bogota?
I grew up in Spain because my parents, when I was how old was I? I was 6 years old. We went to Spain for vacation, and my parents decided that we stayed in Spain for a whole year. And during that year, my parents split. So I returned with my mom to Bogota, and my dad stayed in Spain.
Okay.
My dad remarried, and when I was 10 years old, then I moved again with my dad because I always had a better relationship with my dad than with my mom. So I ended up going to Spain, and I lived in Spain for 10 full years, from 10 to 20. Then I go to Argentina, and that takes me back to Colombia, and that's when I start acting.
Okay. All right, so that was kind of my next question. It was kind of what came first, mountain biking or acting?
Acting came a lot sooner. Mountain biking, I'm going to turn 44, and I started mountain biking 8 years ago. So I only started mountain biking in 2012. So, and I've been an actor for over 20 years now. So yeah, it came along very, very late in my career.
What was your first big break in acting and how did that happen?
The first big break was in soap operas. I was in Colombia and in Venezuela. I mostly did soap operas, right? So my first big break was a soap opera I did in Venezuela. It was called My Sweet Fat Valentina. that became that became a world success in the soap opera world, right? Of course,
Yeah.
it's a very strange product, but beats the heck out of me. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, and then after that, I went back to Colombia, and then I had another kind of breakthrough in my hometown in Colombia, which was something called the Snitch Cartel. And the cool thing about the Snitch Cartel, it was the first like narco series produced in the world. Like before Narcos Mexico, before anything you can imagine in the world of television and narcotics, there was the Snitch Cartel,
Okay.
right? And that opened the door to a new world of productions. And that kind of is the laying ground for my international kind of breakthrough, which was Narcos with Netflix. That became a huge success almost everywhere in the world.
What eventually brought you to the States?
So I had been thinking about the States for a while, right? My wife, she's American. She was born in the States, but raised in Colombia. And we decided to have our first son, Joaquin, to be born in the States, in Miami. So I was doing a project between Caracas, Venezuela, and Miami, and that's when we thought it was the time to finally make the move, right? So we get there to Miami, and it was cool, and I like it, and I've been there a lot, but it was not what I wanted. I wanted to be in LA. I wanted to aspire, to Hollywood in a sort of way, right? And the cool thing is that, I didn't have to come to LA. I actually come to LA after Narcos and after the 33, because that's what came first, right? Even I did Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and I still wasn't living in LA. So, the whole idea of casting through distance kind of started becoming popular. So all these shows and movies, they came before even coming to LA. But that's how I got to the States. After Miami, we go to North Carolina for a show called Six, and that's where I meet you guys.
We first met while you were working on the first season of Six, and
Yep.
that was a History Channel show about SEAL Team 6.
Yeah.
For some reason, when we first met, I don't know why, but I thought you were crew. And you mentioned what show you're working on, and the sound mixer, who I know, Mike Rael. And I texted him, I was like, yo, I'm riding bikes with your dude Juan Pablo today. And he says to me, it's like, oh man, I just, that guy's laugh just sounds so good. And to some people that might sound kind of weird, but as a sound recordist, you appreciate things like that. And I'm like, wait a minute, why is Mike complimenting Juan Pablo's laugh? And then you followed me on Instagram, and I see you have like 500,000, like Colombian women following you from your soap opera days, I guess. And then it made sense. I was like, oh, okay, this guy he's cast, not crew.
Yeah, that's correct. It's because I act like a crew member.
Yeah, you kind of do. You definitely give off a good vibe like that. So I think we had like 2 or 3 days riding up here in Western North Carolina when we first linked up. And
Yeah.
you've ridden a lot of trails since then in a lot of different places. Was there anything you can remember that stood out from our rides?
Oh man, it's I still remember it as one of the most beautiful rides. That first climb, when we did that big descent,
Yeah.
that rocky section, it's just,
Yep.
what stands out? So much different terrain.
Yeah, you can kind of hit some different terrain.
Right,
on,
we
like,
had all
doing
these
a,
kind of rocky sections in the top. Then you start kind of going into the flowy sections, But we also hit some roots that you can feel like you were in BC. I remember
Yep.
this kind of rooty kind of section, and then you had this tacky berms in the bottom section of the trail. I was like, wow, it's like riding all seasons in just one trail. It was really cool.
Yeah, we did a big ride that day. We did like Laurel to Pilot to Avery to Black, I believe. I think that's what we did. So yeah, you got a good taste of a bunch of different zones there in that ride.
Yeah. Also, I was not the most experienced mountain biker at that moment. I still hadn't ridden that much diverse terrain. So it all came a little bit as a surprise to me.
You were mostly riding in like Wilmington, and you'd ridden some stuff in like South Florida, right?
Yeah, I was riding, basically I was riding, I started riding in Dura in Venezuela. So right before I moved to Miami, that's when I came across like 27 and a half wheel size, and I had my first like real enduro-ish kind of bike, which was the Bronson, right?
Yep.
That was a big game changer because my first real bike was a 2012 stump jumper, the alloy stump jumper, which when you look back, it's a good bike, but the Geo sucks, right? The
Yeah,
Geo is
definitely
just
compared to now.
exactly. It's like no, it's not slack at all. It's like it's just a regular trail bike, for riding what was considered back in 2012 trail, right? Like trail bikes now are super aggressive compared to those bikes. So anyway, I had started riding, some things in Venezuela and stuff, and then I rode like an EWS in Trestle Park in Colorado. But I was still getting the hang of it. I just did it because what the heck. But I was
Yeah.
really, really just still understanding riding. So when I rode with you guys, it was like a big like, whoa, okay. I cannot fall here and break my butt because I have to go back to work. But it was definitely challenging terrain for me at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you were a very ripping and competent mountain biker at that time. So that was during season 1 of 6. Well,
Yeah.
then season 2 of 6 pops off, and they moved your ass to Vancouver, the
Yes.
mecca of mountain biking, dude. Come on.
Yeah,
In
dude.
my eyes, that's like the perfect scenario of like a work-life balance. And you live just like a few kilometers from.
I live
So
right there. I live
yeah,
right there. I live in Capilano River. I would literally drop my kid off school and go right Mount Frome. I mean, it was a dream.
yeah. So how did that change mountain biking for you?
Well, it was pretty simple. The first time I visit Steed Cycles, which is like a very well known bike shop there. They tell me like, hey, just be careful. Just be careful out there. But and I'm like, why? Like, well, because you're gonna find a lot of things and a lot of riding conditions that are very unique to this place of the world. So just be careful. And we're just gonna tell you something. BC will make a better rider of you.
100% yes.
And then I started seeing what they were talking about. All this humidity, all these ruts, all these obstacles, all these man-made obstacles too, right?
Yeah.
It's paradise, man. It's like huge Disneyland for mountain biking, but it takes a while, to actually feel confident because it's a lot. The first times you actually go through those trails, it's a lot.
And then you move back to LA. So again, you position your living zone like right beside a good trail spot. How did that work out?
Every time we move, the first thing I go is Trail Forks, and I check where the trail system is, and I try to be as close to the trailhead as I can. If I can do it, if it's a good spot, if I like, my wife likes the ocean, so we also try to be close to the ocean. So I try to make it work, but I definitely try to move as close to the trails as possible because that saves me a lot of commute time.
Yeah, and that's important, especially living in LA where it can take an hour to get halfway across town.
Yeah, but not only that, Michael, it's like having two kids, right? Like I can't just, like, my bike rides cannot be 4 hours per day. Like, I have to keep them short and sweet, bro.
I saw your Instagram story this morning, and you were dawn patrolling it.
I always try to dawn patrol as much as possible, but there's not too many dawn patrols out there, right? But for me, I love to see the sun rise up when I'm on my bike. That's a great way to start the day.
That is a good kickstart to the day for sure. Some people
Absolutely.
say coffee, but I think climbing to an epic viewpoint and watching the sunrise definitely beats coffee any day.
I feel so energetic after doing that, even if I slept only a couple hours. If I do that, I have the best day ever. Like today, I was about to bail out. I had a bad night. I just woke up like at 2 a.m. I couldn't go back to bed. And then at 5:30, the clock goes off. And I'm like, should I cancel? I'm like, hell no. Just get out there. Dude, you're going to feel terrible if you cancel. You're going to have zero energy. And you know how this is, as good as it is, it also you become a little bit addicted to it, and your body starts asking for it. And when you don't give it to it, it just makes you feel bad.
You mentioned your wife, Monica, and you guys are busy parents. And I love seeing you guys sharing your social media content and doing awesome stuff with the kids. How's that balance going with everything right now?
It's gotten very intense, It's like people without kids, they've had a lot of time in their hands, for the good and for the bad. Some people have done amazing things. Some people have got very, very depressed, very, very sad, right? It's like for us, there's no time for one or the other. We're full on, with the kids, especially having our kid now at home every day with the homeschooling. Now it's a complete different game. And we have Jojo, which is 2 years old and needs attention 24/7. So It's been busy, but there's always a silver lining, right? Like, hey, I can say I have not missed one single day of my girl's life. Not one single day.
And that's awesome to say.
Yep, that's right.
Seems like you've started getting some good connections after that Columbia stop of the EWS, where I saw some footage of, Jared Graves being real psyched to meet you, since he was a big Narcos fan. And then, you start getting some pretty rad hookups with, like YT, DVO Suspension, and most recently Crank Brothers, So how's that been going?
That's been great. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. There's two aspects about this that I really, really like. First of all, there's the of course the economic part, right? Like I have 2 kids, and I just can't buy all the stuff that I would want to have on my bike, right? So this gives me the opportunity of having my bikes with the components that I like, and I just love it. I love YT. I love the people in YT. I love DVO. I love Crank Brothers. So the cool thing is also, and this is the second good thing is, I've made friends with these people. Especially because it's really not a commercial relationship, I don't get paid to ride YT, but we met, we talk, and they say, hey, we would love for you to ride YT bikes. I'm like, yeah, I like YT bikes, like bring 'em, right? And of course, one connection takes me to the other, and then I became really good friends. Well, the first really big connection was with Gaspare from Crank Brothers, and that's how I met Marcus from YT. So now we're friends, and that's a cool thing. Like, we're friends. We're riders. We ride together. We talk about life, and we've become friends. And that is what I value the most. And it's great because we don't have any kind of commercial contract. So I'll just post stuff, whenever I feel like it. And I don't have to lie about it because I like it. I like DVO and I love Crank Brothers and I love YT. I like him. I like what they do.
How do your followers react to that? Because you've definitely been building more of a mountain biking following on your
Mhm.
social media, but you still got a lot of the soap opera following too. So how does that balance out?
It's weird. It's weird. It's like
Yeah.
most of them are still like, why do you do that? Why do you put your life at risk? Like you're gonna die. And of course, there's the mountain bike following, which that just feel it's really cool. What I feel about this is as a mountain biker, I think it's also cool to see content out there of, what I call the a bit above average rider. To be honest, like 95% of people ride like me, right? Then you have the other 5% that just shred and just are crazy amazing riders like yourself.
Oh,
And
come on.
and I mean, dude, you rip and you know it. Don't downplay it. Okay, but I think it's also cool to see that kind of content, that where you're like, oh, okay, this guy, he's just riding as fast as he can, but he's not gonna jump that triple. I know I'm not gonna backflip. But most of the guys riding out there, they're my age now. They're guys in their 40s, they have an economic position now that allows them to have a good bike, right? So I think it's cool, and I think that's kind of my audience is that. Of course, like none of the pros are going to look at my content like, oh wow, did you see the latest video that Juan Pablo put up? It's like, it must be laughing like, why is this guy going so slow? But I've also become friends with some of them, right? Because they like Narcos and they just think it's dope to have an actor share their passion. Because I do love mountain biking. I love mountain. You know it. You know how much I love it. I love the trails. I love the mountain, and that it's become a very important part of my life.
It was interesting when I was up at Crankworks, I believe it was last year, I was hanging out with Curtis Kino a little bit, and he was like, dude, that Juan Pablo dude, he is on another level. I was like, I know, man, I know. So
Dude,
you still impress the pros, so don't act like you don't.
no, 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 no. Those guys are very, very nice to me. And when we ride together, they always make sure that they ride us at a speed where nobody's gonna get sued. You know that the mountain bike community, we're part of something really special. It's a good group of people, man. The competition is completely different than when you see like the roadies or something. It's a different sport, right? I think we're just about something completely different, and competition is more a thing that you do with you. You want to jump that double, maybe someday you'll get it, but it's not. Hey buddy, I can do it better than you. Like I've never had that on a trail.
There to session, have fun, because
Yeah,
that's why most of us do that. It's because we're just trying to have fun.
exactly.
Obviously, mountain biking has a lot of risk and reward.
Hmm.
So, how do you approach your riding when you're coming up to a production beginning a new show or like during a show? Like, how does your mind work with that?
It's always different. You know that it's very hard to just say, "Oh, I'm going to ride slow today," because you make a lot of mistakes when you ride below your average speed. So I've come to this sweet spot where I think I know what my point is, where I can ride fast enough that it feels fast, but it feels safe. Like after 8 full years, almost 9 years of mountain biking, I can say right now that I think I've learned that what is a safe speed for me. Of course, shit can happen and things can go wrong in a second, right? But I feel confident that when I'm shooting, I am riding at a speed that feels very, very safe. Also, the bikes and the components are so good nowadays that you just feel so much safer on a bike. Like most people will say, "Oh my God, you're crazy." And when you're on a bike, you're like, "No, man, that was pretty damn safe."
Yeah, like this bike will run over curbs and giant rocks, and I'll be
It's like
fine.
it's like no problem. It's made for that.
But I also have the same mindset, because like we work in the same industry, although we don't do the same things. If my arm don't work, I can't work.
Yeah,
So
totally.
I have the same mindset, and it's like you're still going to ride at the same level, but maybe you're not going to do that hard technical rock move on this go, or you're not going to yank for that extended long double on this run or something. But you're still going to like ride at your normal capacity.
Absolutely. And I think it's always a little bit above average because it's a sport that involves a lot of self-improvement. So I think you always have to ride, to that point where you feel that you're having fun, you're being safe, but you're pushing a little bit. That also keeps you sharp, Like you can't be that relaxed. You have to be a little bit on the edge, yeah, so you don't get too chill.
Your most recent project just went live on CBS All Access, a show called Coyote. I've only watched the first 2 episodes so far, and your character has just been introduced. I
Yep.
was real excited to see you. I was like, oh, there he is! So I'm real interested in see the development of your character. I know you've been doing pressers for the show all day, but just kind of sum up the show. Give us a little rundown on what's been going on with that.
Sure. So Coyote is a story of Ben Clemens, played by Michael Chiklis. You might remember him from The Shield, and he is a just retired border patrol officer who gets into a lot of trouble with the Mexican cartel that's run by me. Basically, now he has to do what he has been all his life fighting against, and it's basically smuggling people through the border, right? And by doing that, he becomes a more humane version of himself because he starts humanizing the conflict and he starts putting a name and a face, to these migrants, and he starts understanding that some people just don't have a choice, right? Now, on the other hand, you have my character that I start using him for my commercial purposes. But you're going to see this guy, and he's the head of a cartel, but he's the complete opposite of what you think a cartel guy could be. He's well educated. He studied in the States. He speaks English, and he has manners, and he's a very, very sophisticated guy. So these two worlds come into collision, and what starts happening is very interesting because they start like behaving like magnets. There's this sort of attraction and repulsion to them permanently, and they have to both start, cohabiting this new reality that they have created.
Everything you said about your character is like things I picked up on in those first minutes of you being introduced on screen. And that show kind of got shut down early due to COVID.
Yeah, it was devastating, dude, because it's like when you're off for a big ride and something happens with your bike and you have to return and you're just heartbroken. So it's kind of the same. It's like not finishing the ride, right? So we were set up for 10 episodes and we could only shoot 6.5. We got sent home. We were about to finish episode 7. We couldn't do that. We thought it was going to be a short hiatus. And then, 1 year later, we're in this. Yeah. So now we just premiere the show with what we had with the 6 episodes, which is great because otherwise it would have thrown them in the garbage. But now we don't know if we're going to get picked up for another season. It's just this new reality and everybody adjusting to it.
And you guys were shooting in like Mexico, like Tijuana, California, Arizona border area?
It was only shot in Mexico, in Tijuana, Ensenada, the Valley of Guadalupe, which is wine country. And you, Mr. Traveler, you have to take your van down there because it's beautiful.
I've skimmed through those areas a little bit, more like towards Yuma, Arizona. I've been in Mexico there. That was mostly for a dental visit.
Yeah, you told me.
I've ridden some of the San Diego stuff, but I've not crossed the border on that zone, so I definitely have to check it out. What have been some of the shows that have allowed you to have the most good mountain biking spots?
Well, you can't, it doesn't get better than 6.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
North Vancouver. But I will tell you, when I was shooting a film called The 33 in the desert down in Copiapó in Chile, I took my bike, and I'll tell you this, it is not the best mountain biking at all. But I was able to ride my bike in places that nobody had ever ridden a bike before.
That's awesome.
So that was really cool. Another cool thing that happened is I met one of the local mountain bikers there. He was just used to riding like on the dirt trails, but he was never going up the mountains. And I took him to the mountains for the first time. Oh. And he became so obsessed with the whole idea that now he organizes one of the biggest races in South America in mountain bike endurance that's called Pedalea Atacama, which is in the Atacama Desert. And it's this guy, just because we started riding and he got so passionate about it that now he started his own race. It's great.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's cool to hear about sports professionals, TV stars, movie stars, people like yourself being psyched on mountain biking. Have you been able to introduce mountain biking to other fellow cast members?
I've tried. I've ridden bikes with Nikolai Coster-Waldau from Game of Thrones.
Okay.
He's a mountain biker too. I have a couple actors in the spot, I'm trying to make some boy dates with them, but of course with COVID it hasn't been possible. But there's not many of us, people get scared, just because of the visual of it looks so dangerous. But once you get them on the bike, they feel a lot more comfortable. But I did take my buddy Wagner Mora from Narcos on an e-bike ride, and he was so stoked. He was so
Nice.
stoked. It was really cool.
It's weird. Like a lot of the guys in NASCAR are huge bike riders, but due to circumstances, either their team managers and stuff don't like them mountain biking, but they'll all go
Yeah.
road ride, which I feel like is even more dangerous.
It's a lot more dangerous. They think it's not, but it's who's a good mountain biker? Juan Pablo Montoya.
Yeah, he is. Yep.
Yeah.
I've ridden bikes with him. Yep.
Yeah.
You probably rode with him in Miami area,
I've
right?
never ridden with him actually, but we have a bunch of buddies in common, and they've all told me that he's fast.
What's your bike riding life been like with the COVID scenario going on?
I've been able to ride a lot. Actually, I feel I'm back in shape. I did have a big crash the beginning of last year. I fell in Mount Wilson and I opened my shin. I needed 15 stitches in my shin. It was not such a big deal, but it took a lot of time to heal because you don't have that much skin on the shin. So I
Yeah.
needed like 3 rounds of antibiotics. And funny enough, it's like after that, and after that, I had a double knee surgery, and that was right when I was like in my peak riding and confidence and shape. And now I feel like I'm slowly getting back into the confidence zone, but it's taking a while, man. I didn't think it was going to take so long, and it does take a while after an accident.
I've heard like if you go 2 weeks off your bike, you lose like majority of your fitness just off the bat from that.
Oh yeah, I've heard that every 2 weeks that you lose, you need like 2 months to get back on it, like just the fitness.
So what are some of your favorite spots to ride in the LA area?
I've been very surprised by how many good spots we have here in LA. I would say Mount Wilson is my favorite just because it's such a big ride, it's such a long downhill. The other day I went up there and there was snow. So we
Yeah.
even started the ride, with 20 minutes of straight snow. That was surreal. Like you're in LA. Like after that I went to the ocean. I was like, wow. So that's surreal. I would say that, and there's a trail I really love. It's called Suicide Trail. It's in a place called Oak Park. I love it because it's fast, but it's also wide enough, that you don't run into trouble with hikers or something. And it's a very good loop. Like Wilson is a one deal ride, but Sui you can do 2-3 laps, and you kind of session it and have fun. It's really fast. I love that one.
Do you get up to the Simi Valley stuff much?
Yeah, I do. I do go out to Simi Valley. Actually, I'm trying to schedule a ride for this week out there at Simi. Those guys work a lot, especially wherever Curtis is. Him and his crew, trails run very, very smooth.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about it is that now Curtis is working a little bit more on the Calabasas area, but he left a good crews, that work a lot on Simi. So Simi is always tip-top shape.
Simi is probably one of my favorite spots to ride in the LA area. I love all the cool rocks and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know. I know you're riding, and I know you enjoy it.
Yeah. So what have been some of your highlights for riding destinations? You've ridden a lot of cool spots, so let's hear it.
Well, that trip that you and I did to Guatemala, that was pretty cool. That was dope.
That was really awesome. Going into that trip, I like read up on it, and you said we were doing like some like XC type of ride, I think is what the website description was. I was like, I'm along for the ride. Juan Pablo wants to do it, so I'm in. And then we get there, and luckily you're friends with a couple of those dudes.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, you're not doing that stuff. And they basically told the guides to like, okay, you're gonna take them on these trails.
that was a lot of fun. But also, like I think you can't compare, Squamish. You can't compare North Vancouver. You just can't. Whistler, you can't. But the whole experience of being there, eating the local food, meeting the locals, I think that's what really was worth it.
Yeah, Guatemala was a really rad trip. I had a lot of good times on that.
For sure.
Do you have any new projects coming up? Hopefully Coyote's going to resume.
So yeah, we'll see about Coyote. This Friday, it's the 15th. I did a movie with Liam Neeson before COVID called The Marksman, and that also premieres on theaters. So wherever there's movie theaters, people going, they can go and see that. So, and I'm guessing it's going to have a short run on the theaters, so probably it will be available on iTunes and all the platforms pretty soon. But that is it for now. For now, that's what I have.
COVID's been taking a toll on the production industry. I went months without working, and you're dealing with the same stuff right now.
Exactly. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
What is your current trail bike setup?
I'm very lucky, right, to ride with YT. So I have a Decoy, which is their e-bike.
Yep.
I have a Capra, and I have it like really, really kind of shred version because I have I have the coil, and I had a 180 in the front, which now I'm switching to a 170. But the bike I'm really enjoying right now is the Ezo.
Oh yeah.
And I'm having so much fun on that bike. The climbing is just unbelievable. It's a climbing machine. And then on the way down, it behaves so well. Like all the things that I used to ride with the Capra, I'm riding on the Ezo. And hey, some parts I have to ride a little slower and I can't just tackle on the huge rocks. But I find my way around. I feel super comfortable. So right now I'm riding the Ezo. I have it with a DVO Diamond 140 in the front, and I
Okay.
still have the Fox shock that it comes with, whatever, the 130.
Yeah.
I'm riding it with Crank Brothers Synthesis carbon wheels, and now I'm riding it with. I'm trying out these Versus new mountain bike tires that they're making them here in North California. I am riding it with SRAM brakes, which I don't like. I love the guys from SRAM, but I just don't like SRAM brakes. So now I'm getting my XTs because I don't know.
You going with XTs or you're going to put Saints on there?
No, I'm gonna put XTs on that one. It's a light bike. I have Saints on the Capra and the Decoy, but I think this one will be fine with the XTs.
I've got codes on my Izzo.
Yeah, but you're a squishy guy. You like your brakes squishy, buddy. I like my brakes to break, actually.
It's modulation, Juan Pablo. I like modulation.
Yeah, whatever. You squishy guy. Whatever you say, bro.
Yeah. How can people follow along with your interesting life?
I don't know if it's interesting or not. It's just what it is. So
Yeah.
But you can always take a little stroll through my social media on my Instagram, and I always post whatever I'm doing work wise and whatever I'm doing like family wise and job wise and riding bikes wise. You can hit me up if you want to talk about bikes. Like I will always respond to anybody who wants to talk about bikes. A lot more than people who ask me about acting. So I'm there.
Awesome. We'll put a link to your Instagram in the show notes here. But dude, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been great to have you on and great to see your beautiful face.
Sure, brother. It's always good to see my gringo, even if it's through the digital world.
Man, that's really good to hear somebody with such a good following, with such a passion for mountain biking. I think that's kind of the thing that's missing in mountain bike culture, and what we see in mountain bike media is that it's mountain biking by mountain bikers and for mountain bikers, when really every kind of person that you could possibly imagine participates in mountain biking, especially famous actors.
And that's what's funny is like he had such huge passion for mountain biking when I met him, and that's kind of what threw me off into thinking that he was a crew member, not a cast member. Because like usually most cast people that I interact with, especially at his level, you don't really hear much of their personal hobbies or passions. Usually it's like just work stuff and then they go away. Having someone at his stature come in to represent mountain biking is really awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And, every once in a while we see it, like, I believe we've seen Tim Comerford, the bass player for Rage Against the Machine, is into mountain biking, and Reggie Miller from the NBA.
Yeah, Reggie Miller shreds it on a double XL.
Well, naturally, I don't think anybody in the NBA is going to be riding anything smaller than a regular XL. And famous tennis player John McEnroe figured out a way to take out his aggressions on a mountain bike instead of on tennis rackets.
Yeah, he was pretty aggro in the courts, wasn't he?
Everybody can be a mountain biker, and a lot more people are than aren't. So, Mangler, I've got the weather pulled up, the 10-day forecast for the region, and the only thing that's really sticking out to me is Wednesday, Thursday, but maybe Wednesday. The rest of it's just still not looking so hype.
In our area, the weather patterns are just kind of all over the place. Transylvania County is one of the wettest counties in the state, and then you have Buncombe County, where Asheville is, and that's one of the driest counties in the state. So it just kind of really depends on the zone you're in and kind of how the snow fell. But yeah, this weekend looks to have some chilly nights and some thawing middays, but Wednesday, Thursday look good.
I'm gonna pin the tail on Thursday for my ride this week.
You know what? We should try to link that up.
Yeah, let's.
As always, you can follow us on social media. Just search Pisgah Podcast.
And if you've ever binge watched a show on Netflix, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
I think that's every single person in this world at this point after COVID has binge watched a Netflix show.
Yeah, I'm almost running out of things to watch. You got any recommendations?
Oh man, there's this new CBS show called Coyote. You should watch it.